The grand hall of Baron Varel's palace shimmered with light. Chandeliers hung from the ceiling, their crystals reflecting every color in the spectrum. The walls, carved from rare crystalline stone, hummed softly as if alive, resonating with the low murmur of conversation. Velra nobles, tall and elegant, moved gracefully across the marble floors, their long robes flowing like liquid silk. Their faces were calm, almost flawless, yet their eyes held the faintest trace of pride that only centuries of power could bring. In the center of this display of wealth and power, a human named Dr. Samuel Harlan stood quietly, taking in the scene. Humans, Harlan knew, were not admired in this corner of the galaxy. The Velra viewed them as primitive, short-lived, and fragile. Even now, as Harlan observed the gathering, whispers of his presence floated through the air. "A human among us," someone said softly. How daring or foolish, Harlan ignored the whispers. His calm demeanor masked a mind constantly calculating, analyzing, and learning. He had crossed countless light years to attend this gala, not for wealth or status, but because of a chance, an opportunity to see new worlds and perhaps help someone in a way only humans could. The Baron of Arenas Prime, Vorel, spotted Harlan and strode toward him with the kind of self-confidence that came from being born into unchallenged power. He was tall even by Velra standards, with sharp features and a voice that commanded attention without effort. His eyes, pale blue like frozen ice, swept over Harlan in amusement. "So," the Baron said, his tone dripping with mockery, "you are the human who believes he can solve anything with machines and clever thinking. Tell me, Doctor, have you ever seen a mind trapped, unable to speak or move, and thought you could free it?" Harlan met the Baron's gaze steadily. "Yes," he replied simply. "Every mind deserves to be heard, no matter the form it takes." The Baron laughed, a sound rich and cold. "Then you must meet my daughter, Lyra. She has been paralyzed since birth, a delicate little problem for someone like you to solve. Perhaps you can entertain the court with a demonstration of human ingenuity. Or perhaps you will fail, as all humans eventually do." Gasps swept through the room at the Baron's words. Even the other Velra nobles were surprised by such blunt cruelty, but they quickly masked their reactions with polite smiles. Lyra's name hung in the air, almost fragile, like a glass ornament waiting to shatter. From a side door, Lyra was brought in. She was seated in a specially designed chair, which allowed her to be wheeled gracefully into the hall. She was smaller than the typical Velra, her skin pale against the rich colors of her robes. Her eyes, however, were extraordinary. They were sharp, intelligent, and deep, eyes that seemed to see more than anyone else in the room. Harlan noticed them immediately. There was no pity in her gaze, no weakness, only an awareness that seemed centuries beyond her years. And then he noticed something else. Her mind was alive in ways even he could sense. The paralysis had kept her body still, but it had not dulled her mind. If anything, it had made her focus sharper. The Baron gestured dramatically. "Dr. Harlan, I present to you my little experiment. If you wish, you may attempt to fix her, show us all the wonders of human technology, or show us how fragile your kind really is." Harlan took a step forward. "I do not wish to show off," he said quietly. "I only want to understand her, to see if there is a way to help her communicate." The Baron waved his hand dismissively. "Of course. Let us see if the human can perform a miracle where others have failed." He laughed, turning to the assembled nobles who murmured among themselves. A human daring to think he can touch the mind of a Velra. How charmingly absurd. Despite the Baron's cruelty, Harlan remained calm. He knew that arrogance and pride often blinded the Velra to true potential. He had seen it before in other worlds, civilizations that measured worth by appearances, strength, or status, and missed the brilliance hiding beneath. The first moments of their encounter were quiet. Harlan knelt beside Lyra, careful not to intimidate her. "Hello," he said softly. "My name is Samuel Harlan. I have come a long way to meet you. I would like to understand your mind, if you allow me." Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly, but then, almost imperceptibly, a small pulse of light flickered in her specialized chair. It was a signal, subtle yet precise. Harlan's heart skipped a beat. She was responding, not verbally, not physically, but in a way that machines could read. He activated his portable interface, a compact device filled with sensors designed to interpret brain waves and subtle neural activity. The machine hummed softly, and then a stream of soft light patterns began to flow across its surface. Harlan studied them carefully, recognizing the structure almost immediately. Lyra's mind was far more active than any Velra he had encountered, even more than many advanced AI systems. The girl's neural activity? It's incredible, Harlan murmured under his breath. The Baron's laughter cut through the moment. Incredible, you say? Well, let us see if your clever human gadgets can truly do anything. He turned to the nobles. This will either be a triumph or a magnificent failure. Harlan ignored the mockery and focused entirely on Lyra. He noticed her thoughts moving in patterns, almost like music, intertwining mathematics with emotion. There was frustration, curiosity, and above all, a desire to communicate. Over the next hour, Harlan adjusted his devices, carefully matching their sensors to Lyra's unique neural signatures. Light pulses, vibrations, and sound waves were calibrated to her brain. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, she began to respond. Tiny flashes of light appeared in the interface, forming patterns Harlan could interpret. The girl is speaking, he whispered to himself. She's thinking in ways no one expected. The Baron leaned forward, frowning. Speaking? Nonsense. It is merely a machine interpreting signals. It cannot truly hear a mind. Harlan ignored him as he always did when faced with arrogance. She understands me, he said, more to himself than anyone else. Then turning to Lyra's interface, he asked a simple question. Can you hear me? A soft series of pulses formed on the device. Harlan read them carefully. Yes. A collective gasp escaped the gathered nobles. The idea that a human could facilitate communication with a paralyzed Velra had seemed impossible. Yet here it was, undeniable and real. The Baron's pride shifted subtly. He had mocked humans, mocked Harlan, and mocked his own daughter. Now for the first time he saw a spark of something unexpected. A quiet fear began to creep into his thoughts. What if the human succeeded? What if his daughter's mind was greater than anyone had imagined? Harlan continued his work, patient and deliberate. Over the next few hours, the pulses grew more sophisticated, forming patterns that could be translated into basic language. Lyra's voice, once trapped inside her mind, began to emerge through the device in a rhythm of light and sound. Awake! Long time, the interface finally displayed. The room fell silent. Every noble, including the Baron, stared in shock. 16 years of intelligence, trapped and unheard, had suddenly been revealed. Lyra's mind had existed in isolation, and now a human had unlocked it, not through force, not through arrogance, but through careful observation, patience, and respect. The Baron's face turned pale, his laughter gone. For the first time, he was not in control of the room, not in control of his daughter, and certainly not in control of the human before him. Harlan's calm presence, steady hands, and unassuming mind had achieved what centuries of Velra technology and arrogance could not. As the evening progressed, whispers turned into murmurs of awe. Lyra continued to respond, creating patterns and symbols that Harlan carefully interpreted. Every answer revealed depth, intelligence, and insight beyond imagination. The Baron realized something critical. His daughter was no ordinary Velra child. She was a mind of extraordinary potential, capable of shaping ideas and technology far beyond the reach of any empire. By the time the gala ended, Harlan had not only begun communication with Lyra, but had also laid the foundation for a new understanding. The Baron, who had mocked him hours before, now regarded the human with wary respect. For all his arrogance, he could not ignore the truth. A human had unlocked brilliance hidden for years. As Harlan packed his devices to leave, he looked at Lyra one last time. Her eyes met his, filled with gratitude and curiosity. We will discover more together, he thought. And in that silent understanding, a partnership was born, one that would challenge empires, redefine intelligence, and reveal that even in a universe of advanced beings, the human spirit could uncover what others overlooked. Outside, the stars of Arenas Prime glimmered like tiny fires in the night sky, unaware that the first spark of change had already begun inside the Baron's palace. The days after the gala were quiet, but filled with electricity. Harlan had set up a small laboratory inside the Baron's palace, a space filled with lights, screens, and instruments designed to monitor Lyra's brain activity. The Velra servants and nobles whispered constantly about the human's progress, some in awe, others in disbelief. It seemed impossible that a human, considered fragile and primitive, could connect with the mind of a Velra child. Yet the evidence was right before their eyes. Lyra sat in her chair, her eyes scanning the lab. The devices Harlan had designed pulsed softly, reflecting her neural signals. Harlan moved carefully around her, adjusting sensors, calibrating lights, and speaking in calm, measured tones. "Today, we will try something new," he said gently. "I want to see how you think when you are free to imagine anything." For a moment, the room was silent except for the quiet hum of the machines. Then, almost imperceptibly, Lyra's eyes flickered. The light from her chair began to change patterns, forming shapes that Harlan had never seen before. He leaned closer, studying the signals. "These are equations," Harlan whispered. "Not simple ones, but complex patterns that describe energy, movement, and even the motion of stars." The Baron, who had been observing from the doorway, froze. His pride had turned into unease. Lyra was not just communicating. She was thinking, in ways that rivaled the most advanced Velra scientists. "Impossible," he muttered under his breath. "A child doing this?" Harlan ignored him and continued, guiding Lyra through the interface. "Can you show me the pattern for how planets move around their stars?" he asked. The chair's lights shifted rapidly, forming spirals, curves, and arcs. Harlan's eyes widened. Lyra's understanding of motion and energy was far beyond simple calculations. She was visualizing the universe in a way humans and Velra could barely imagine. "This is genius," Harlan said softly. "She sees connections that no one else does." Word of Lyra's abilities began to spread quietly through the palace. Nobles who had once mocked the Baron's little experiment now whispered among themselves in amazement. Some were excited, seeing potential for the Empire's advancement. Others were fearful, realizing that the human had unlocked a mind that could challenge their dominance. The Baron, however, tried to maintain control. "This is impressive, yes," he said to Harlan one evening. "But remember, she is still my daughter. Her mind may be sharp, but she is still a child. You cannot allow this human influence to take over her thoughts." Harlan looked at him calmly. "I am not taking over her mind. I am helping her express what is already there. She has always been capable, and now she can be heard." The Baron hesitated, sensing the truth in Harlan's words. Pride had led him to mock the human, but now he realized that mocking had been short-sighted. His daughter was extraordinary, and if Harlan could help her, it could change everything. As the days turned into weeks, Lyra's abilities continued to grow. Harlan refined the interface, allowing her to communicate more effectively. She began to send structured messages, not just simple signals. Words formed on the screens, followed by mathematical patterns, scientific diagrams, and ideas that were centuries ahead of current Velra understanding. One morning, Harlan arrived to find Lyra had created something entirely on her own. The interface displayed a complex design for a new energy system that could generate power more efficiently than any existing technology on Arenas Prime. Harlan studied it carefully, recognizing principles that even advanced Velra scientists had yet to discover. "This is incredible," he said. "You've designed something completely new." Lyra's eyes flickered in response. "I saw the patterns in the stars. I thought they could be used differently." Harlan smiled. Even in her limited, physical form, she was thinking like a master engineer, a visionary, a mind unrestricted by convention. Meanwhile, the Velra court grew restless. Some nobles, fearing the potential of Lyra's mind, began plotting. They whispered that Harlan's human influence was dangerous and that the child might be used to undermine Velra control. The HFY Baron overheard some of these conversations and felt a pang of fear himself. He had never thought the situation would escalate like this. But despite the growing tension, Harlan and Lyra worked tirelessly. They experimented with ways to expand her abilities. Lyra learned to manipulate machines, guiding robotic arms with precision, constructing intricate devices, and even predicting outcomes of complex experiments. Her mind, once trapped in silence, was now a force of creation. One afternoon, the Baron entered the lab, his expression unreadable. "I have watched for weeks," he said slowly. "You have done more than I expected. But tell me, human, what is your goal? What do you hope to achieve by unlocking her mind? Harlan met his gaze. My goal is simple, he said. To help her be heard. To let the universe see what she has always known. And perhaps, to show that humans can see potential where others see limitation. The Baron looked away, conflicted. He had always valued strength, appearance, and control. But now he saw that his daughter's true strength lay in her mind. And that strength was growing faster than anyone could control. As weeks passed, Lyra began to display abilities that startled even Harlan. She could predict mechanical failures before they happened, solve equations in seconds that took advanced AI hours, and detect patterns in environmental data that revealed hidden dangers on the planet. One evening, as the sun set over Arenas Prime, painting the sky in shades of orange and violet, Harlan watched Lyra with admiration. You are more brilliant than I imagined, he said quietly. Her eyes met his, filled with understanding. I knew, but no one listened. Harlan nodded. Now they will. But the court was already restless. Rumors of the human unlocking the child's genius spread beyond the palace. Some Velra envoys demanded to see the results for themselves, while others plotted to halt the project, fearful of the human influence. The Baron, sensing the growing threat to his authority, realized he had underestimated the human. He had mocked Harlan as a fragile, simple creature. But now he understood. The human saw possibilities, where the Velra saw limits. Harlan's patience, respect, and ingenuity were unlocking brilliance that no arrogance could suppress. One night, Harlan and Lyra sat alone in the lab, the soft hum of machines filling the room. Do you understand how far you can go? Harlan asked gently. Lyra's eyes flickered. I can see more than the stars. I can feel the patterns of everything. Harlan nodded. Then we have much work to do. We must learn how to channel that brilliance, not for power, but for discovery, for understanding, for creation. And so, their partnership deepened. Harlan taught Lyra to refine her communication, to control machines, and to explore her mind safely. In return, Lyra taught him that the universe was full of patterns humans had barely begun to understand. Together, they began unlocking secrets that would challenge centuries of Velra arrogance, but not all were pleased. The nobles who feared Lyra's potential began to whisper more urgently. Some suggested that Harlan's human presence was dangerous, that the child could be used as a weapon, and that the Baron's pride might lead to disaster. The Baron heard these whispers and realized that the greatest threat to his daughter's brilliance was not her paralysis, but the fear and jealousy of those around her. Harlan, ever calm, reassured him. Fear will not stop her. Understanding will. If we guide her mind carefully, she can change everything without harm. She can show the universe what brilliance looks like when it is nurtured, not mocked. The Baron sighed, a rare moment of humility. For the first time, he saw his daughter not as a fragile child, but as a force beyond his control. And he knew, deep in his heart, that the human had given him a gift he could never have imagined, a chance to see the true potential of his daughter. As night fell over Arenas Prime, the palace was quiet. In the lab, lights danced across Lyra's interface, pulsing with thought, intelligence, and potential. Harlan observed her with respect, admiration, and a quiet pride. The human had come to a Velra palace as a visitor, mocked and underestimated. Yet in weeks he had revealed a brilliance that no one could ignore. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Lyra was no longer trapped. Her mind had awakened, and with Harlan's guidance, she was ready to show the universe what she could do. And somewhere deep in the Baron's heart, a new understanding began to grow. The true measure of strength was not in power or pride, but in seeing what others overlooked and nurturing it into something extraordinary. The palace of Baron Vorel had grown tense. Word of Lyra's brilliance had spread like wildfire, and whispers of fear and admiration filled every corridor. Velra nobles, once confident in their superiority, now glanced at the human and the paralyzed girl with cautious curiosity. Some were excited, imagining the wealth and power that Lyra's genius could bring. Others were terrified, fearing the change that could disrupt the careful balance of their empire. Harlan moved calmly through the halls, carrying his portable interface. Lyra was waiting in her lab, her eyes glowing softly as the interface pulsed with her thoughts. The room smelled faintly of ozone and warm metal, the energy of the machines humming in sync with her mind. "Today," Harlan said, kneeling beside her, "we will try something larger. I want to see if you can understand not just machines, but the patterns of energy around the planet." Lyra's eyes flickered with excitement. Though her body was still, her mind raced. She understood the challenge instantly. For years, she had sensed the rhythms of the world around her, the flow of energy, the movements of stars, the subtle vibrations of matter itself. Now, for the first time, she could use Harlan's interface to act on those patterns. Harlan activated a network of sensors placed throughout the lab and connected them to the palace's central systems. Lights flickered, machinery hummed, and the air itself seemed to vibrate in response to Lyra's mind. Harlan watched her focus, his breath held in quiet anticipation. The interface pulsed faster, responding to the intricate patterns of her thoughts. Lyra was not just observing, she was calculating, predicting, and directing. A mechanical arm moved smoothly across the room, assembling a device based on her neural commands. A series of holographic diagrams appeared, showing the energy flow of the palace and the surrounding environment. Harlan marveled. "She is seeing the planet like a living system," he whispered. "Every current, every vibration, she understands them all." Outside the lab, whispers turned into alarm. A group of Velra counselors had gathered near the doorway, their faces a mixture of awe and fear. "What is the human doing?" one asked. "He is awakening something. Unnatural." "This is not unnatural," the Baron said, his voice low and tense. "It is my daughter. She has always been brilliant. The human, he simply allows her to be heard." But the counselors were unconvinced. They saw a child controlling machines, manipulating energy and predicting outcomes beyond their understanding. "We cannot allow this," one of them said. "If she is allowed to continue, she could become more powerful than any Velra ruler." As the council debated, Lyra's interface pulsed in rapid succession. Light shot across the walls of the lab, forming patterns that even Harlan struggled to interpret. She was tapping into the energy of the palace itself, guiding systems and machines with flawless precision. "Enough," one counselor shouted. "Shut it down. Stop the human before it is too late." The Baron's heart sank. He had always protected his daughter, but he had never imagined such fear would rise from his own court. Harlan stepped forward calmly. "She is not a threat," he said. "She is learning. If you interfere, you will only limit her potential. You cannot control genius with fear." The counselors hesitated, but some moved forward, intending to seize the machines and disconnect Lyra. Their movements were swift, but she was faster, not with her body, but with her mind. The interface pulsed violently, and the laboratory responded instantly. Doors locked safely, lights rearranged, and mechanical arms positioned themselves between Lyra and the intruders. The counselors froze in shock. The human had warned them, but the reality was undeniable. A paralyzed girl was now controlling the lab with precision and authority. Harlan knelt beside Lyra, speaking calmly. "You are safe. Only protect yourself and do not harm them. Show them what you can do without fear." Lyra's eyes flickered and the interface pulsed. Energy flowed through the palace's systems, forming holographic projections of her mind at work. Patterns appeared that described energy distribution across the planet, revealing hidden reserves and ways to generate power safely and efficiently. The counselors gasped. They had come expecting a frightened child or a failed experiment. Instead, they saw brilliance beyond imagination, a mind capable of understanding systems no one else could. "This is impossible," one counselor whispered. "A child controlling the palace." The Baron stepped forward, his voice trembling slightly. "This is my daughter. She is brilliant, and the human did not control her. He allowed her to show what she is capable of." Lyra's first words, spoken through the interface, echoed clearly in the hall. "I am awake. I can see. I can help." The counselors looked at one another, uncertainty in their eyes. They had always valued power and control. Yet here was a mind that could not be measured by either. For the first time, they realized that intelligence and understanding could surpass brute strength and status. Harlan guided Lyra carefully. "Can you show them the energy flow of the planet?" he asked. The interface pulsed again, projecting a holographic map of Arenas Prime. Streams of energy flowed like rivers, showing currents, reserves, and natural patterns. Lyra highlighted areas where resources could be optimized without harm, predicting the effects of each adjustment with perfect accuracy. The nobles were stunned. What they had feared as a threat was actually a revelation. They could see the potential for prosperity, advancement, and safety. But the fear of change still lingered in some hearts. One counselor, desperate to assert control, shouted, "Stop this! The human cannot be trusted. She is a child. This is not natural." Lyra's lights pulsed rapidly, responding to the tone of fear. Harlan placed a hand gently on her chair. "Do not react out of anger," he whispered. "Show them what you can do calmly." The room grew quiet. Slowly, Lyra's projection shifted, demonstrating solutions instead of dominance. She showed how energy could power entire cities efficiently, how machines could work in harmony with natural resources, and how understanding patterns could prevent disasters before they occurred. The counselors watched, silent and humbled. The human had been right. Fear could not stop genius, but understanding could guide it. Lyra's mind was a gift, and she had the power to shape the future. The Baron's pride and fear mixed in a complicated swirl of emotion. He realized he had underestimated both his daughter and the human. He had mocked Harlan as fragile and weak, but now he saw that humans could perceive brilliance in ways the Velra could not. Harlan's patience, respect, and insight had awakened potential that had been trapped for 16 years. As the night wore on, the council left the lab, some still murmuring in fear, others in awe. Lyra's lights dimmed slightly as she rested, her mind processing everything that had happened. Harlan knelt beside her, smiling softly. "You were incredible," he said. "You saw patterns they could not even imagine. You spoke with clarity, intelligence, and power, and you did it without harming anyone." Lyra's interface pulsed softly. "I wanted to be seen, to help, not to fight." Harlan nodded. "And now they have seen you. They may fear you, but they will also respect you, and one day they will understand that brilliance cannot be contained by fear." The Baron stood silently, watching them. He felt a deep humility he had never known. His daughter, once mocked and underestimated, had demonstrated power beyond imagination. And the human who had arrived as a stranger had unlocked a mind that could change the future of an entire world. That night, Harlan and Lyra worked quietly. They continued to explore her mind, refining the interface and discovering new abilities. Lyra began to manipulate small systems around the palace, adjusting energy flow, predicting mechanical failures, and even designing improvements to existing technology. Every step revealed more of her brilliance, and every discovery humbled those who had once doubted her. The human and the paralyzed girl had become a team, united by trust, respect, and shared purpose. Harlan knew that this was only the beginning. The Velra, proud and powerful, would eventually have to accept that Lyra's mind was extraordinary. And when that day came, the galaxy itself might never be the same. Outside, the stars of Arenas Prime shone quietly, unaware of the storm of discovery and revelation that had begun inside the palace. But inside, a new force was awake, a mind that could see the patterns of the universe and a human who had shown her how to express them. Together they were unstoppable. The palace of Arenas Prime had changed. What had begun as a place of pride, arrogance, and tradition was now a center of quiet awe. News of Lyra's abilities had spread beyond the walls, reaching distant planets, noble houses, and even the Galactic Assembly. Yet inside the Baron's home, tension still lingered. The Velra counselors who had once feared Lyra's power now debated cautiously how to respond. Could a paralyzed child, guided by a human, really reshape their civilization? Harlan entered the lab early one morning, his calm presence a counterpoint to the rising unease outside. Lyra's chair was bathed in soft, pulsing light, responding to her thoughts and neural patterns. She had grown more confident with each passing day, her interface allowing her to communicate effortlessly, not just with machines, but with complex ideas. "Good morning," Harlan said quietly. "Today we can try something larger, something that shows them who you truly are." Lyra's eyes flickered. She understood immediately. For weeks, she had tested her abilities on small systems, refined her understanding of energy, and demonstrated her intelligence safely. But now the human suggested something bigger, something that could prove, once and for all, that her mind could contribute to the galaxy in ways the Velra had never imagined. Harlan guided her carefully, connecting her interface to the palace's systems, the city's energy networks, and even planetary satellites. The display of lights, data, and patterns was breathtaking, yet Harlan remained calm. He trusted Lyra's mind, knowing she would act with precision and wisdom. Outside the lab, counselors and nobles had gathered, unable to ignore the activity. The hum of machines and pulsing lights drew their attention, and a mix of curiosity and apprehension filled the hall. Even the Baron watched silently, his emotions conflicted. Pride, fear, admiration, and humility swirled together. Lyra's interface began to pulse faster. Lights shot across the room, forming patterns that projected holographic images into the air. She was calculating energy flows, predicting mechanical outcomes, and analyzing environmental conditions in real time. This is extraordinary, one counselor whispered. She can see the systems of the planet as if they were part of her mind. Harlan knelt beside Lyra. Focus on clarity, he advised softly. Show them what you can do without intimidation. The interface pulsed again, projecting a full holographic map of Arenas Prime. Lyra highlighted areas where energy could be distributed more efficiently. Machines could work in harmony with natural systems, and resources could be used without waste. Every adjustment she proposed was safe, practical, and innovative. The counselors stared in awe. The child who had once been mocked was now teaching them solutions that had never occurred to even the most learned Velra scientists. Fear began to shift into respect. They could no longer deny her intelligence or her potential. The Baron spoke quietly, almost to himself. I thought I knew everything about power. I was wrong. My daughter, she sees things I cannot even imagine. Harlan watched the Baron carefully. Pride can blind us, he said gently. Understanding can change everything. For the first time, the Baron acknowledged the truth. He had underestimated both his daughter and the human, and now he realized that their partnership had revealed something greater than any noble status, any title or any weapon, a mind capable of shaping the future. Lyra's pulses shifted again, faster and more intricate. Harlan recognized her intent. She wanted to demonstrate not just efficiency but potential. Energy flowed through the palace's systems, lights brightened, and machinery moved with seamless precision. Holographic diagrams showed patterns that could power entire cities, improve transportation, and prevent natural disasters. The counselors whispered among themselves, some still afraid but many beginning to understand. The human had not created a weapon. He had helped a mind express itself, unlocking possibilities that were both safe and profound. One counselor, once a vocal critic, stepped forward. We cannot deny this. The child. She is extraordinary. And the human who guides her. He has done what we could not. Harlan remained calm. I did not guide her. I simply allowed her to express herself. She has always been capable. All I did was listen, observe, and provide the tools. The counselor nodded, humbled. Then perhaps it is time to accept change. The Baron, standing behind them, felt a warmth he had not expected. His daughter, once mocked for her paralysis, had become the center of admiration, curiosity, and hope. And the human, whose kind had long been underestimated, had unlocked that brilliance. Lyra's interface pulsed one final time, projecting a holographic message across the hall. I can help. I can see the patterns. Together we can create a better world. The room fell silent. Every Velra, every noble understood the magnitude of what they had witnessed. Fear had been replaced by awe. Doubt had been replaced by understanding. For the first time, the child who had been trapped in silence was shaping the minds and hearts of the entire court. Harlan guided her gently. Do you want to show them the energy grid of the planet? He asked. Lyra's eyes flickered with determination. The interface expanded, linking with satellites, city systems, and power networks. Streams of data formed complex holograms, showing precise energy distribution, potential improvements, and predictions for future stability. The counselors leaned closer, their faces illuminated by the patterns of light. They could see clearly now. Lyra's mind was a gift, and her abilities were not a threat but a resource beyond measure. The Baron stepped forward, his voice strong. My daughter has proven that brilliance cannot be measured by appearance, limitation, or status. She has shown courage, intelligence, and vision, and the human beside her has reminded us that understanding and respect can unlock potential beyond imagination. Murmurs of agreement spread through the council. The nobles, once fearful, began to realize the truth. A mind nurtured with patience and care could achieve what arrogance and power could not. Lyra's interface pulsed again, and this time, she added a final projection. A vision of a future where Velra and humans worked together, where energy was used efficiently, cities were safer, and knowledge was shared freely across the galaxy. It was a vision of cooperation, growth, and hope. Harlan watched, his heart swelling with pride. He had come to Arenas Prime as a visitor, underestimated and mocked. Now he saw the power of human ingenuity, not in domination or weapons, but in compassion, observation, and the ability to see potential where others saw weakness. The Baron, standing silently, felt tears welling in his eyes. His daughter, once confined by her body, had become a beacon of intelligence and hope. And he understood that the joke he had made, once cruel, had backfired in the most profound way. His daughter's brilliance, aided by a human's insight, had become a force that could reshape their world. Lyra's first spoken words through the interface were simple, yet powerful. "Thank you for seeing me," Harlan smiled. "No, Lyra, thank you. You have reminded everyone what courage, intelligence, and patience can achieve." The counselors, once skeptical, began to nod. Change was difficult for the Velra, but the proof was undeniable. Lyra's mind had been awakened, not controlled. She had demonstrated the value of compassion, patience, and listening. And the human who had helped her had shown that even those underestimated could unlock greatness. Months later, Arenas Prime entered a new age. Lyra and Harlan established the Institute of Symbiotic Intelligence, where humans and Velra worked together to advance knowledge ethically. Her designs improved energy systems, transportation, and planetary safety. Machines that once seemed impossible to control now moved in harmony with natural systems. The Baron, once proud and mocking, became a quiet supporter, learning humility and the true meaning of wisdom. He watched as Lyra spoke before assemblies, councils, and scholars, her voice clear and confident. When asked how she achieved such brilliance, she simply said, "A human saw potential in me where others saw limitation, and that made all the difference." Harlan, preparing to return to Earth, paused beside her one last time. "Are you ready?" he asked. Lyra's lights pulsed softly. "I am awake." "And I am ready." But humanity did more than help me. They reminded the galaxy of what can happen when we listen, observe, and care. As the sun rose over Arenas Prime, the stars shone brightly above, reflecting a universe now open to possibility. The Baron's joke had backfired, but in the most extraordinary way possible. A paralyzed child had awakened the minds of a civilization, and a human had reminded the galaxy that brilliance is not measured by strength, status, or appearance. It is measured by the courage to see what others cannot. And so, a new era began, one of collaboration, understanding, and hope. Harlan looked at the stars, knowing that this was only the beginning. Humanity had made a difference, not through power, but through vision, patience, and compassion. And Lyra, once trapped in silence, would lead the galaxy toward a future brighter than anyone had imagined.